All right. Looks like we are live. I'm excited that there's going to be a PVK live stream today. It seems like he's getting back on his Friday regularity. So they certainly don't want to jump into that. But I wanted to. I've been thinking a lot, and if you've paid any attention to me, even over the past couple of years, about um, uh, been a guy who thinks that like I love these YouTube just chattings, and I think they need to keep going. Um, I I know that they've been really valuable. I think it draws a lot of people in. I personally love to watch people think about things, and I'm someone who's willing to kind of come online and participate, kind of in a public way. Um, but for a long time, what I've missed is I felt what was the power when I first showed up of the having a private offline space where we primarily use the bridges of meeting voice chats, and video chats. Yeah, it's grim. I get nothing online is really private. But what I mean by that is, um, if you aren't recording something, for example, the voice chats, and also the video chats, if you're in that space, it's not being published to the public internet. I think we need to be careful about sharing certain things, because there are some things that you might want to talk about things. Let's say some family issue or something, or some struggle that doesn't belong out on the YouTube, where that person, you're airing their dirty laundry. So yes, could people be monitoring and AI scraping the information into something? Sure. But it is private in the sense that it's not going to be broadcast to the public in the way that YouTube is. There's a very different thing. Um, and I saw the great power in doing that. In addition, I think that there are things that I will share and have shared when I'm in a more private space, um, than I'm willing to go and share on YouTube, because it's not appropriate, right? I also think that there are a lot of potential folks who are lurkers or whatever. Before we had the place in the space, they could go, they'd still go there, but it was dynamic. And it's right now, people aren't really using the Bridges to Meaning Discord a lot. But I think it's a valuable thing. I mean, because people are finding their way to BVK, and I'm part of the PVK circle, but finding their way here through YouTube. And so I love what Estuary is doing in real life. I've said that repeatedly over and over. I think it's going to be extremely valuable. And so people that are building those groups in their cities across the globe, I am like, yes, yes. And I want to see that thrive. At the same time, I've mentioned we're in this liminal space of this time before that has happened. So I think there's the need to provide that space. So what I'm thinking about doing, and this is why figured I'm sitting here thinking about this. I'm like, why don't I just come out and talk to people about this? My current job, I'm lucky we're on spring break now, so most of the folks in my organization are off. So I've had a little free time, so I've participated. I can't be someone that can moderate and be in a space 24/7, 365. But I can create times where, hey, I'm going to be, and I think that's probably what can do is like, hey, this day of the week at this time we'll be hanging out there. And if you're someone that wants to, find your way to this little corner and you want to talk, have conversations like you're seeing here on YouTube, that hey, we'll go ahead and do that. I also think that it could make some sense to actually have some actual estuaries where we follow the protocol, for people that maybe don't have an estuary in their location or whatever, so on and so forth. So I think it'd be a mixture of freelance conversation, which I always loved, kind of wherever it went, and then also some estuary protocol stuff. So if anybody's in, so I'm trying to think about, do I want to dedicate my time to that? Like, I think it's useful, but maybe I'm the only one who sees that. Tayo, I hope Tayo, I think I sent him. I just decided I had some time and I wanted to have this conversation. I think Tayo's kind of showing some interest in that. So um, I, I'd like to. I'd, I'd really like to hear from the people, and I think maybe we'll, drop the stream in here, drop the link in here. You guys can jump in, and we can have a conversation about it. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'm sensing there's a need that isn't there. Um, that that people don't really desire that space or whatever. Because part of where I think I'm at is I'm like, okay, if you're the guy that's banging the table all the time and you think something's important, if you're no matter where you're at in any sort of an organization, um, that then you probably need to be if you're the one who believes that you're the one who should kind of be providing that space. And I know Grim has posted some reservations potentially about Discord. I think Discord's a good tool, and so because it affords some things, I think you can probably do some things to maybe control the atmosphere a little bit so it doesn't turn into something maybe you don't want it to be. Um, but that's really that's just something to me that I think seems to be this gaping hole. Um, like I look at someone like Phoebus here who's in the comments. Um, yeah, and I get so he says he doesn't want to sink any more time into it, but and I'm curious, like Phoebus, if there was something that were a bit more private when you had some time. I know you have, you're able to jump in here to YouTube's. If something were not, broadcast globally live, would it be something you'd be willing to participate maybe in a bit more often? Um, like I'm really curious about that. Like Phoebus, you're kind of like almost the perfect example of well, not the perfect example. I think you're an example of someone that I would be curious that if things were a bit more private, and if the place in the space was purely about just a place where we were coming in and we were having some conversations, and maybe we didn't have some of the other stuff that can go wrong. Would you participate more? Um, yeah. So here we go. All right, Zach's popping in. Yeah.
Hey, how we doing?
How's it going, man? And then Stephanie, yeah, I think, see, that's it. Like, so Stephanie says, I think there could be others out there like me who would like an estuary, but who have not found the others in their current location. So it would almost be the place where you could do that until maybe you find that person, or you have the time to create that where you're at. So I mean, that's really where that's kind of was my genesis of this, which is there a desire for that? Because if there is, I think that I'm willing to hopefully find some other people. There are a lot more interesting conversation partners than me, particularly that want to talk about certain things that find their way into this little corner. But what I can do, and I'm good at, is I'm a good welcomer, and I'm a person who can be consistent and say, okay, like I can commit to this into my weekly schedule that I'll provide these places and these spaces, and maybe I can go out and find you know, some more of the all stars that might be able to participate on certain days or dates or times or whatever. If you're a person who's out there lurking and would like to have a conversation with them. So, at any rate, Zach, welcome in. What say you?
Yeah. I want to make sure that I didn't miss something when I was, getting onto the link. So what I heard when I wanted to jump on was about estuary, like that you thought that should be a place where people could have more of these conversations. And that's an in-person experience. Is that correct?
Well, it can't. Yes, so that 100% they're doing it, but you can totally follow the estuary protocol and have the an estuary conversation. You can absolutely do that online. It
Okay.
you know
Okay.
with the so I do, but I agree. Like, listen, this is not a replacement. Like, I want people, and I believe, like, I'm ecstatic about what people are trying to do with estuary. But you look at someone like Sherry who lives up in the Canadian bush, or Stephanie. We're finding people from across the globe where they would like to maybe participate in that, but they don't have the group of people to come together yet. And so I think that we are an online phenomenon and we shouldn't run from that either. I think it's not either or, it's both and. Like it's in real
Sure,
life.
sure.
And then I also think it's like the free form, like it's both. I think that people would want a space where they'd love to participate in like the online estuary protocol, so to speak. But I also think people like to just get together because you got a big here, they don't want to just get together and where the free flow of the conversation goes, as happens in these just chattings. Like Luke might come
Mm,
on here and start riffing, and then all of a sudden, an hour later, it's gone down this totally different rabbit trail. But it's
mm.
interesting because new people. So for me, it's about creating a space to have good faith online conversations amongst the people that come in here that aren't broadcast publicly.
Gotcha. Okay, so are you familiar with the emergent commons space?
Uh,
That's not on your radar yet? Okay. So emergent commons was sort of birthed out of the rebel wisdom diaspora. So when rebel wisdom, are you familiar with rebel wisdom?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. So when Rebel Wisdom had their sort of online asynchronous sort of text-based platform, I mean, similar to Discord, it was actually, I think, a program called Circle.so, if I remember correctly. And David and Ali, who were the founders and the runners of Rebel Wisdom, were almost the only ones managing that. They may have had a couple other like sort of part-time people helping to manage. What's the word? It's not manage. um Moderate, that's the word. Like the moderation, like the it was very taxing to appropriately moderate and come up with the protocols of like how do we let people speak on these topics, and how people are fighting and throwing shit at each other, and it's like, okay, how do we do this and still maintain our main mission, which is sort of creating these videos. And they ended up deciding to issue that, and a group of people from around the world who really love the asynchronous part of it, not everybody's synced up to London time, said, we will take this off of Rebel Wisdom and this Circle platform and create a new environment on the Mighty Networks platform. Are you familiar with Mighty Networks at all as a sort of online space? Okay. So
No, no,
Mighty
no.
Networks, yeah. Google Mighty Networks and sort of see how they've sort of built that out. Jamie Wheel's Flow Genome Project also has used Mighty Networks as sort of like this semi-private online container. Like there is gatekeeping to allow people to sort of get in, and you can have, a whole series. You can have interviews that people have to go through to get access to that. And then you can create these different sorts of threads and meeting spaces. And so we have online book clubs. Um, there's just all sorts of stuff there. I've probably shared enough. Yeah, I assumed that you knew about it, which was my mistake. And so I was like, oh, what
No,
about
that's
Emergent
why
Commons?
I went live, like
Yeah.
because distributed cognition, the hive mind, the thing, I'm just familiar with certain and although like all Discord is or what you were talking about, like those are tools, right?
Yes. Yes.
And it's the heart of um, I think I think the magic I've seen that's happened here in this space that no longer exists is people find their way to Paul Vanderklay
Yeah.
or in this little corner, and they want to talk to people in the way that they see people talking, the way they see him talking, and if they're watching just chattings, the way other people are talking, and so the only obviously I had not been on a Discord. Now um my stepson lives on Discord. That's how he
Sure.
can
Sure.
that's he connects. They get online, they play friends. So anyway, that's the only kind of tool that I'm familiar with. Like to me, the tool is finding the right tool is important. I can enable some of this, and I'm totally going to look at some of those things because I do think that there, and I could see it. Some of the folks felt like maybe Discord wasn't the right tool here, and maybe some of these other things are there. But what you just talked about is it, it kind of, I guess, brings up to me like there's people have a desire that they want to come together and connect and have conversation. And you pointed out a big thing. A large part of it is like moderation, right?
Yeah.
because I spent a lot of time in leadership consulting, and working with teams and stuff. Like, it's an art to try and call out potentially like, if you're really trying to moderate a good conversation. I think sometimes free flow is great, and then other times you want to make sure you call out certain people, because sometimes you need to call introverts into the conversation, uh,
Yeah.
because they're just waiting. They're, whatever, and silencing the dominating talkers and so on and so forth. And if people are kind of moving things along, like, moderation is a big part of that aspect of it. And so I like a little bit of a mix of both, whereas provide these cultivated, moderated spaces,
Yeah.
and then also allowing for the free form to happen too, where people could go off if they want to, those sorts of things. So, have you participated? So it sounds like, Zach, thanks for jumping on. So have you? It sounds like you participated in these types of
Yeah,
groups.
yeah, yeah. It's been so it was probably 2021 or 2022 when this emergent commons space was born. And in fact, it took maybe close to a year even just to sort of land on that name because they were very focused on it being sort of decentralized and spread out and responsible among a lot of different people. So the process of naming went through several iterations and revisions and making sure they're finding the right way to do that. The process of moderation, like they learned from all of the things that had happened over on that Rebel Wisdom channel, and I said, okay, how do we not fall down the same path that befell David and Ali over there. And they have a moderation team, and then they've created these um, processes for if you have an idea to form a crew, you can sort of either pitch it to them and get some feedback on if it maybe already exists or where it might fit best, or just go for it and say, here's the crew that I want to start. And people can then join and sign into that crew. And you have sort of like a separate sort of subdomain almost of conversations within that crew. You can create events like so for us, the big thing that sort of drew me in is like my calling for it was creating a crew around Jamie Wheel's book, his book, Recapture the Rapture. So when he launched that, we created a book club around that. So anybody interested in that could join. But then we got to the end of the book, and we had like created relationships with each other and gone in deep in a lot of ways. And so I said, well, we could just start another crew with another book, or we could rename this crew in a way that articulates what we got out of it best. And so the third section of his book was about ethical cult building. And we didn't want to rename it that. We weren't trying to build a cult. And we landed on a name called Ethical Cultivating. We liked the cult word, but cultivating, kind of gardening felt a little bit better.
That's
And
very
then,
catchy. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
catchy. Yeah.
And so then we've been through about 6 or 7 books in the meantime. We did Brian Murarescu's Immortality Key. We did Zach Stein's book on education in a time between worlds. And we just actually finished up Lila, which was the author of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It was his second big book, much lesser known, but better in my opinion. And we actually interestingly just decided to kind of disband the group 2 weeks ago. Like we kind of all felt a culmination. And so now that group is sort of reforming within the Mighty Networks sort of world, the emergent commons world of Mighty Networks, and people who had previously just been participants, whereas I was sort of like a facilitator leader. Now they are like, okay, we've learned some things and protocols that we would like to, develop and expand in. They are starting their own sort of new book clubs. So the spores are spreading.
Yeah. And
Whereas
so, like,
I've been feeling like I need to get into YouTube. Like I'm feeling called into Paul's Corner here and Grail Country and this whole space. And so for me, it's a YouTube. That's the platform that I feel called to right now.
yeah. And listen, Paul, we're a YouTube community. I mean,
Yeah.
we found our ways to each other watching YouTube and watching, Paul Vanderklay YouTubes primarily, right? So this is 100% a YouTube community. I think a lot of the things you talk about there are things that have happened. Like even on the Discord server, there was a writers group, right? And there's a book club, and so all these little offshoots within, there's all this. There's a lot of complexity and variability in this little corner. So all that stuff kind of is still happening. Like some of that stuff is still happening. I wanted to point out because this is it. So Luke, uh, Clara asked this question. The magic doesn't exist anymore. And Luke is like, it's not broadly like it was in the early days. Difficult, almost impossible to bottle the spirit. This is where I'll disagree with Luke, right? So there was this. There were the early days when everything was small, and particularly when the Bridges of Meaning Discord server was very small. Luke built a great friendship, and there was a lot of quote unquote magic that was happening, and so I think he's commenting that we can't ever go back to that, and I think that's true. I don't disagree with him on that. Here's where I disagree with him wildly: is that people still the spirit of this is good faith conversation. That's not impossible, Luke, to re-encapsulate. He also said it's mainly around persons. I actually think that, and that's why I said specifically earlier, which is I could find some good conversations partners, because what is really attractive is people watch YouTube and maybe they watch a Luke Thompson, or they watch a Jacob, or they watch a Nate Heil, or all these different sorts of characters across the YouTube spectrum. And then people may want to have conversations with those people, or at least the people that watch those people. And so in the same way that a book, like people come around a book, there are themes and conversations that are ongoing within like the particular YouTube channels, right? And people, just like you want to talk about a book, want to participate in the spirit of what's going on with those people, right? They want to talk about the spirit of what's going on in that conversation. They're ruminating on the things that are being discussed, and they want to be, a lot of people will need to process that stuff out loud, right?
Oh yeah.
With other people that are having those same conversations. So my main thing is like, we are YouTube, and that's kind of what we do. Also, there's this amazing effort to build out in real life estuary for in real life community. I think it's fantastic. 100% behind that. What I think we've lost is this place which you talked about, which is the place for folks who don't particularly, and I've seen people here, I was asking the question, Stephanie and others are like, yeah, I think I'd be more likely to maybe participate in more of this, and I like you say, cultivated, moderated. The spirit of really what you're trying to do is provide a space where the spirits of the spirit of these types of conversations could exist and off off a public broadcast network, right?
Yep.
And I also think that what would happen with this is, and that's why, like, I'm sure a buddy of mine like Nate Heil, this is his channel, he's so gracious to let some of us use this. He's really big into estuary. I know that he would love to come on and be a part of a conversation in an estuary protocol. People around Grail Country maybe wanted to do that because he likes to participate at all levels.
Well, I know that Paul yesterday was talking about some things he's exploring around creating a conference. Like what the next type of summit might be for. I guess it's estuary or something like that. Like figuring out what the how he's going to build that and attract people to it seemed to be what he was trying to think through. What the cost might be as he hosted in Sacramento. Like it would be great if some sort of online container that would ramp up to that and then allow people to do their sort of in-person meetings and then stay in touch after the fact. Like if those two things could be integrated. And I gave the Mighty Networks example because that's what I'm familiar with, but I don't think it's perfect. And I actually wish that somebody could build something better. So maybe somebody is working on something or is familiar with it. I see little text comments going back and forth, and I don't know if I should respond to them or if any of them are pertinent
If,
to what
if
we're talking about here.
uh, uh, 100%. So Zach, I've seen you in comments sections or in different channels, but you and I have never had a conversation.
No,
You're out
and I've
here
seen
doing
you.
so we're going to totally TLC this, right? A little bit. I'm very curious. By the way, your name is Killer, the Zach Parsons Project. That's freaking awesome. An old guy, I recognize that. That
Yes.
I
You
know
get the
that.
reference.
So you're doing Mighty Networks, you're doing all this other stuff, and then when did you find your way to this little corner? And then it sounds like you jumped in quickly. Like this is you see the need and desire for this, but what brought you here?
Yeah. It was Rebel Wisdom. Yeah. Paul did an interview or a film, as David would call them, with Paul. And I used to be a pastor. And so just the whole idea, like as Rebel Wisdom started to move into the more religious space, that's where I sort of like double clicked. And like towards the end of Rebel Wisdom, like David, one of the last things that David said publicly was that he thinks we're entering a post-secular age. And I was like, yes, that is what I think. And that's probably been a year and a half now. And it seems like that was prophetic. Like he was on to something. Like we're living in that right now. And so when the disbandment happened, there were people who were focused on other sort of elements of what Rebel Wisdom would focus on. But for me, it was church. And honestly, for me, the reason that Jamie Wheel, who I also got exposed to by Rebel Wisdom, the reason that I double clicked on him was he uses the language of church all the time. And in that three-way conversation between him, Jordan Hall, and Daniel Schmachtenberger, there's a moment towards the end where Jamie is describing his um, he broke down and wept when he saw Aretha Franklin's Amazing Grace, like the trailer for her documentary, and he's like, "That is church. That is beauty. That is what we actually need to find and develop and cultivate." And so, like church. So I went all the way down the rabbit hole to a retreat with Jamie Wheel, like in the canyons of Utah, like in person, like we're off grid together, and like I'm just there to talk church. Like he's teaching us about survival techniques and like how to wayfind and purify water, and take a shit in the ground and then cover it with dirt. Like it's neat and cool and probably practical if the world does end soon. But I just wanted to talk to him about church, and I didn't time the conversation right. And so to fast forward, when Jordan Hall's conversion dropped, like a giant, pebble, like the tidal waves of that, I was like, I need a place to process this. And Paul's corner has been that place. And is to the extent that Jordan there's like a Jordan corner now sort of forming within Paul's corner. Those people who are also interested, like that's where I'm at. And it's led to conversations with Christian Baxter. So him and I have a recorded conversation on his channel that he's going to sort of put out soon. We did call out Luke actually, like say,
You're
I want to
wearing
talk
the
to
Jimmy.
Luke.
You're wearing the Jimmy Eat World shirt, one of his favorite bands,
Wait,
Christian
whose favorite
Baxter's favorite.
bands?
Christian Baxter loves Jimmy Eat World.
For real? Okay, we didn't get to talk about that, but Jimmy World is actually from my hometown of Mesa, Arizona, and I know the drummer, and like they're my boys.
Okay.
That's great. Now we have another conversation that we can have together. But I think maybe also to your point of like how we continue to have these conversations, I was like, man, I would love to talk to Luke. When Luke's in like sort of a manic, sort of free flowing thing, it's like,
Yeah.
damn, give me more of that. I want to dance with him. If I can get to like his level and dance and spar and wrestle, like I want to do that with that guy. But how do you do it if you don't have a YouTube channel?
Right. Well, and so for these, like, so how you do it, which works out great, is you can just jump into a just chatting, right? So you can do that on the public internet. And with you being, listen, you're willing to jump in here. I'm an extrovert. I also was a house church pastor, right?
Oh,
And
awesome.
so I'm willing to get it, I'm willing to jump in the fray and have conversations, put myself out there publicly. The space that I would really look forward to would be a place where Luke wouldn't participate. Luke's an anarchist, so he hates organization and structure. So But if there were cool people having a conversation and they kind of, or people that maybe didn't want to jump on YouTube or whatever, but if there were cool conversations going on someplace, Luke would want to participate in that. Like I know
Yeah, yeah,
him.
yeah.
Like he's a junkie for it. And I do think the personalist thing would be is like there would be a time where you could announce like, hey, we're doing this. We're going to talk about X, Y, Z. Luke's going to be here with Sherry and Chad, and we're going to talk about X tonight.
Well, I'm
I
glad you
think
brought up Chad.
yep.
Can I just like, so Chad and I have like commented back and forth on a couple things like within the YouTube sort of public, like the thread of comments, but there's not like a direct message function to where we can be like, hey, here's my email address, or here's this other like more appropriate private way to figure out how to communicate with each other. So that all those conversations tend to happen for me on X, on Twitter. And that's where
hmm
Christian and I, and actually Jordan and I, and Ken Lowry and I, that's where we do most of our communication is through X. So it's
Well,
like both X
and
and
I'll say
YouTube.
X Spaces. I messed around with that, and it kind of turned into this Orthodox versus product. A good friend of mine, Nick, we were because I've loved some really great moderated spaces. Like there are some really, particularly if something's going on and people bring actually experts on who know what the hell they're talking about. Like I think that's another place to where we're doing YouTube here where you could definitely do some moderated conversations. I did want to point out that one thing here. Um, yeah, so talking about this, see, actually, what I think is it's not exclusion; it's more inclusion. Because I have this sense, and I've been watching the comments, and a lot of people have been agreeing with it. Is there are some people that would want to enter the conversation, but don't want to be and publicly broadcast themselves, and so I want to include more people in the conversation, not just people who are willing to jump into a YouTube to have a conversation. That's the massive hole that I see that used to be
Yeah.
filled. And like Luke's in here, and I understand when Luke's saying the magic is gone. Listen, yes, the magic of when there were just a few people around PVK and that legal BOM server, this thing is growing. That thing is different. But what you just talked about with the mighty networks, what we can see with the growth of what's happening here, like Christian jumping into the scene, and we've seen this new wave of new YouTubers or whatever, to act as if the spirit of having good faith conversations and this space that is attracting people, to act as if the magic isn't still happening with new people are coming. It wasn't only available for the select tiny few who were here in the beginning. There are those of us who are showing up later that are still finding the magic. So I and as part one of my natural inclinations is you just mentioned you're a pastor, right? So I also have that inclination, and also during that time, I got a sense that people are so different, right? Like how they participate and communicate is so different that I just have this sensitivity to try and provide um, additional spaces so people can participate more fully. So,
Well, and even
it's exactly, yeah, it's not
I
doing this to include, it's doing this to include as many people as possible.
yeah, yeah. And even like you talked about sort of personality types, and I definitely think that that is a part of it. People that are more extroverted, comfortable having like all sorts of levels of conversations and having them in public. And then I think of somebody who I won't name because of like his privacy sort of concerns, who is a fairly prolific, high profile for me YouTuber that's in Paul's, membership only section. And so I think he is more extroverted. I mean, he's got a YouTube channel with, thousands and thousands of subscribers, but the nature of that, of the content that Paul and him went into was something that he preferred not to be out public. And so it's like it's sort of both like those things. What are you not supposed to talk about, like politics and religion in polite conversation? And it's like that's exactly what we want to talk about. And so maybe even if we are extroverted, it's being sensitive to the potential, ramifications of some things landing on certain ears in the wrong, or eyes in the wrong context, and being taken in the wrong spirit.
has his comment here. He says, "I think the magic is more palpable now." There's been a new wave. You know, there are these waves to these things. There was the first wave. There was a second wave. There's really, and I look at even someone like yourself, Zach. There's a new wave happening. There's a new energy. I'm seeing a lot of new faces come up. And part of the new wave I'm seeing is that there are more people creating YouTube channels now. And I think Chad does a great job of just trying to get out there and do things to encourage people. Hey, Chad does all that stuff on his phone, Zach.
It's awesome. Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's awesome.
He's doing all those cut ups for Grim and all the branding he does with Grim's channel and everything else. He's doing all this on his phone.
Yeah. And I remember Tony Robbins' quote from like his TED talk. It's like, the problem isn't resources, it's resourcefulness. And if you are resourceful, like he who has the right why, you know, can overcome any how or whatever. It's like he's able to figure it out with the tools. So it's like there's the tool conversation, and then there's the sort of like, how public do people want this? Do they want the potential broadest sort of audience possible, or a very safe audience to where you can look eyes with sort of everybody else in the room, so to speak, and know that this is a protected space? Because my wife, and I presume Luke's wife, from what he's mentioned about her, like she's not going to come on and have these conversations, but they have their one-on-one or small conversations.
She's already a saint. I mean, I already know she's already a saint. Like, you just put up with Luke. I mean, that woman, God bless her.
Yeah, and my wife's the same way. Like, she looks at me, she's like, I could not do what you're doing right now at all. But she also knows that it's exactly what I need to do, and it is appropriate and feels right for me. But I'm really glad that you're asking this question at this time. And one other thing I kind of want to put out there is, like, because I'm a part of this new wave, I don't understand and recognize the old wave enough. And so I have a deference for a Luke who's maybe, you know, an OG. And if there is magic that we're missing now, I'd want him to articulate that and suggest how it might be protected or rekindled if that's actually needed.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Tunji, how's it going? How do I pronounce that? Is Tunji?
Yeah.
How do I say it?
No, that's right. That's Tunji.
Tunji. All right.
Yep.
What are you thinking about this conversation, Tunji?
Yeah, it's interesting. As a recent a person who up on the conversation live, and I'm not a person who normally writes in chat, or I'm not on social media because I don't like to go after comments, and then it's too stressful for me. But it's nice to have somebody that you can talk with about things that you are in fact spending a lot of time looking at on the YouTube. And the fact is that, yeah, YouTube is public, and I agree with some comments. It's impossible to make it more private. It's not meant to be, but at the same time, it's just because a live stream, for instance, it can be a place like an estuary, online estuary, where there can be a moderation, where the conversation does not go on for too long and is productive, and it can be quite interesting thing. From what I've seen, there is already been something like that on this virtual corner, and yeah, it's not a replacement for the in-person thing for sure. But for instance, I also decided to join because I cannot do much actually in person. I'm not doing well with my health. It would be too much for me to actually go in a place and say 1 hour or two with some people. But from my couch, it can be interesting, even if I don't have to contribute much. It's not the same thing that you just watch. Even if you just watch, but there is a little square of you on the on the screen. It's at that level of participation that makes that magic of community. It's even if you don't say absolutely anything or anything of value, you are still in the group in a more realistic way, and that's nice. I think that's valuable for sure. Yeah, and maybe we will have more time to talk with you, Lance, or also with you, Zach, since we have some similar story, I think, similar background as a pastor myself. And yeah,
Any other pastors want to jump in and join us?
yeah. And I enjoyed your. I think I have very similar take on sacramentalism or the sacrament as you, Lance. Maybe we can talk about that at some point, or maybe not, because I actually think that I take the place where sacred things are. You talk around that, but you don't talk really about them.
Well, hey, I
You do
actually
not.
need to jump back in. My wife and I have a coffee business, and it's Friday, and things are. She's giving me the hook, so maybe this is the time for you guys to have a little bit of that conversation. Wait, did you guys just both drink a coffee when I said the word coffee? Did you both just take a sip?
I was instinctive.
Yeah, there you go.
Pavlov reflex.
Pavlovian response. Yeah. All right. Well, hey,
Yeah,
this is great, guys.
one.
We'll see you. We'll see you around the
Hey,
corner.
thanks, Zach. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
See you
Yeah,
around.
we'll do. All right.
Yeah, no, I think actually maybe we'd be happy to jump into this. There was I wanted to come back to this. So Rocco said, doesn't the Discord server exist? Yes, it does. And particularly for around Paul, although it's not Paul's Discord server, it was the Bridges of Meaning. A lot of us, that really was the main place where a lot of people were meeting. There seems to be, for some reason, some ill feelings or some people having some issues with that. So, you know, I'd be happy just to start cultivating some conversations there, or just providing some space, or maybe it needs to be. That's why I was asking what's the right tool. Maybe it's a brand new server that we can point people to, or maybe it's some other tool. And to me, the tool's not important. I do think it's important that people can turn videos on when they're having the conversations. I think it's a place. I want it to be a place to where that people can be directed to it, and it's not exclusionary. That it's an easier place for people to come in and have some conversations. So yes, there was that, and then he asked and phone calls. Well, yeah, I've met Chad in person. Like I've been to his home. I've met people. I went out and met Kalepa and other people out in Oregon, and so I've met people and have people's phone numbers and text them and have conversations. That all starts happening as the community builds. What I'm specifically talking about is a space for conversation that's not on the public, that's not broadcast to everyone via YouTube, that I think where some people might feel more comfortable to come in to ruminate with other folks, have that conversation. And what happens when you start doing that is people do make connections, and then they connect offline, and they start, real life starts happening. But and I probably will start simple. I think there are more, you could start doing some more things around it, but I mainly came here with the question today, and I think I appreciate the hive mind. I think there probably would be some desire to provide something like that where people can have those conversations that aren't broadcast on YouTube. And I'm on YouTube right now. Like I love the YouTube conversations need to keep going and will keep going because they're extremely valuable. It's just another thing. It's not an either or. It's a both and.
There is an easy step that is the live stream, for instance, they do not have to stay online. That's an option that you participate live, but then it's not a video that stays on YouTube, for instance. It's it has the advantage to give that that live meetup experience, but also you can worry a little bit less of the quality, whatever it means, of the video itself. If you think that it stays forever on YouTube, yeah, it doesn't necessarily. So that would be an option, I think. And then there is, yeah, of course, there were the Discord, there were the phone calls. We can make a Zoom conference, but I think that the media of communication in general is evolving, is changing. So I don't know exactly the whole ramification of it, but there is a change in the way that people or younger generation communicate through their device. That is not simply making a phone call or a Zoom meeting. There is this the live streaming aspect is much more pervasive, and this is going to increase for sure, in my opinion.
Oxman, jump in. Yeah, well, this is a little bit selfish because I've been thinking about it. I'm like, am I the only one who's thinking that there's this gap that needs to be filled? And I appreciate everyone coming on here today and sharing their conversations. I think pretty much I've seen. Oh, he's at work. That's okay. I think there is the need for that. Someone also mentioned that we could use the Grail Country Discord as some of this. And the answer is, like, I would check with Nate, but I don't think Nate would have any problem if we were fostering good faith conversations in the Grail Country Discord. One of the things that I think there probably needs to be, though, is I'm thinking about wherever that landing spot is where we have those conversations, is that it wouldn't be branded with any of the channels per se, so that it could. And again, Nate is open to anyone. He wouldn't have any problem with any sort of good faith conversation happening on his Discord server or for Grail Country. Nate is for more good faith conversation, not less. I know that, of all types. He's very, very. I know that's a very valuable to him. But to some extent, I think maybe not having it on one of the branded ones might make some sense, or maybe if people are willing to moderate and are willing to take some time, maybe the folks who are say, hey, I'll be here at this time, and maybe they do go on the Broken Clock Tower or the Grail Country. I don't know. I don't want to overthink it right now. The simple question I wanted to ask this morning, I think that's been answered, is, yeah, I think some people would like to maybe have that space available. So I guess that means that I need to try and set out some times, try and find some folks who might want to do a little bit of that with me, and just start it and see what happens. Grim doesn't like this. It's a creepy stream title.
Not as creepy as the one of his stream yesterday.
Grim, jump in.
Come on.
Jim, Grim, jump in. And if you've got a premiere, let me know. We'll shut it down.
How
Grim,
come that now Gris judging the title of the stream after what was it, the Rainbow Sex of yesterday? Come on.
The title might be creepy, but I think people got the spirit of what I was trying to communicate with it. Maybe a creepy title's better if people will come in and go, what's this creepy thing they're trying to do?
Yeah.
Clara, what does it mean? How do you know you're in it? I think if you're watching the YouTube videos and you're engaging in the conversation, well, some people are just lurkers. the other thing is, if you're starting to participate and engaging in the conversations, in the various formats, I think you're one of us.
It was an interesting video yesterday also with Clara. Yeah, she did not open up as much as maybe Chad was expecting. There is the unspoken agreement of mutual opening when you enter some conversation, but that was not her. That was not what she was going for at the time. Totally reasonable as well. But
well, I think
we will be nice to.
Yeah, to be fair to Clara, she is asking questions as part of a research research project, and then Chad puts her on a Chad live stream, which is TLC like, and then we kind of knew kind of what the spirit of what some of the questions she was wanting to ask, so we kind of went along that. And then, of course, in the TLC, we asked what brought you here. Let's tell us a little bit about yourself, which is Chad's thing. And so, to be fair to Claire, she thinks she's coming on to just ask some questions, and a TLC conversation breaks out. God bless her.
That's cool. Yeah, but yeah, you can ask her the same question that we ask each other. How did you find out about this place, this channel? How did you get here? Also, her perspective would be very interesting because, maybe a sociologist's point of view is a sociologist who is still in the university, in academia. It's quite an interesting perspective, let's say. Not necessarily.
Well, and I think one of the things that I thought about, it could just be something research, or maybe she does at some point want to participate. Maybe she does want to participate in this. And one of the things I thought about a little bit is, I was kind of pushing back on the identity piece or whatever, because, that's a big part of academia. And quite frankly, that ideology is, identity is a real thing that ideology has. It has its issues. And so that's why I said it was a charged word. And then at the same time, one of the things I thought about is I think at least the spirit of many of us that come into this little corner are trying to get away from our universities are captured by ideologies right now. And so a lot of us are trying to get away from that. And so we come here to get away from the academic gatekeepers that have taken over a lot of higher education and stuff. And so that would be another interesting thing, that I think a lot of us are here because I think you can have conversations here, honest conversations here, that you can't have in academia right now. And particularly if you're someone who wants to be on a tenure track, good luck. If you go against the cathedral, you're not going to get your tenure,
Yeah, it's absolutely brutal. And and also the lingo, it becomes different. She for sure noticed that we have a jargon of sort, but she also come with her own. I had to Google what is positionality, and what is that? I never heard it. It's another word for background, but background probably is not inclusive word enough. So you want to be more. I don't know. It's weird. It's very weird. And the discussion of identity was just come up so easily, so bubble up so immediately, because it's you got thrown into ideology that really shape your mind, to shape your language, and you don't. It's really changed the way you talk. I was trying, by the way, I don't know if you watch the new Peterson releases. of today. There was the one with Bishop Barron, pretty nice, and Peterson is repeating a little bit of the same stuff over again. I enjoyed the Bishop quite a lot this time. Was making some, yes, as usual, nice observation. And then there was another conversation of Peterson with another podcaster, a guy that I didn't know, but he was with the Paul brothers, and then he got a beef with them, and then as a solo podcast, he's a very Christian guy, and I could not go through that conversation. I had to stop after 20 minutes because the guy was speaking such a strong, thick Christianese, such a strong, thick evangelical language to a person that is not on the same page as him. That it was bothering me that I am a Christian as much as him, but I was so put off because, man, you are assuming a mountain, a pile of notion and metaphors, and you're assuming that the person in front of you is catching up on all that is you're saying. And Peterson was asking, in fact, to him, but what do you mean by that? And this time the question was more was more salient than other times, maybe. What do you mean by that? Because it was so Christianese that it was oh man. We have to be aware of the water where we swim in, and that's also why there is an aspect that I like of your conversation, Luke. That there is a strong, there is a big background of knowledge and books and video essay that is in the back of their mind when you talk, but is not we are not speaking Christianese, we are not speaking scientism language, we are not speaking we are not speaking much ideology, and that's kind of refreshing and quite a things to care about.
Dio is here. The thing you talk about, it's that double-edged sword, because to some extent, when you talk about language, and whether it be Christianese, but also just like quick little words, like in around here, we talk about the fancy Vervaeke words. Like there are times where within a community that if you use a word that has resonance for people and it describes this kind of whole thing, by using that word, you can short track the conversation and throw this thing out, and people say, okay, I'm tracking what you're saying about that. Now we're moving on to this other thing. So there are times where it becomes really valuable, so you can move conversations ahead, which is very different than what you talk about, which is the Christianese, right? And there are also times where those things you aren't using it that way. And that's one of the, I can't remember who said this. I don't know if it was PVK or maybe it was something else. But when Jonathan Pajot was talking at the ARC conference, he started talking about things. Like he was using words like things and stuff, right? Which we got more stuff. Like those are we know the complex things he's talking about, but he used normal language, right, that everyone could relate to. So the true gift of a really good communicator is when they're talking about some of these more complex things, or things that could go into a sphere where you could use jargon, let's say. But if you can use the normal term or things that more people can grab onto, it's almost like a hook in a song, right? Like one time, Paul challenged Nate and Luke about, you guys need to, I know what you're talking about. You need to come up with, he was basically saying, you need a hook in your song. Like, you need to describe this stuff in a way that can hook in more people, or else maybe you're kind of always, talking about things, up there, so to speak. And I get what Paul's talking about. But at the same time, like, one of the things I love, and I think you mentioned it, and I think Zach Parsons mentioned it, but when I first came in, the first month or so, just listening to Luke, I knew I liked what he was saying and was resonating, but I couldn't. It was like I was trying to learn a new language. But now that I can translate Luke and can speak Luke because I've watched his thinking process over the past few years, now I'm right with him. And Luke has words that he's described what they are. And so he uses certain when he starts talking about mosaic vision and things like this. Like, so now I know in Luke's world, okay, I'm mapping onto those things. And so, it's all important. But when we're having these conversations, and I think at the end of the day, I think that is what I love Paul about. Paul, and I think it's because he's a gifted pastor. He has figured out how to take these complex ideas and things. He brings them down, applies them, communicates them in a very plain English sort of way that more people can grab onto. And so for dumb guys like me, when I watch Paul talk about complex things, I understand them better.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. There are not many fancy Vanderklay words, and that's kind of a compliment of the man, actually. He didn't need a better language to say what you need to say. Maybe a couple of things.
Words. God number one, God number two, offensive.
Yeah, that was I think in my mind. I don't really like when you mentioned that. It's not does not land with me in any metaphysical sense, but I don't know. It's okay. Yeah, but there is a distinction between words and language, so that's. And then there is a distinction between having reading the same book, the background, and to understand the person you are speaking to.
I wanted to bring this out. I love Grimm, so he's challenging me or whatever. Do I miss the Discord talks? The answer would be absolutely. But more importantly, I have access to the Discord talks because I've been invited to other spaces where people are having those conversations, so don't need them for me. I'm thinking about providing a space for the new person who comes in. And trying to wield the brand name, not trying to wield the brand name at all. That's why I said I'm pretty open to whatever, this would be. And I would prefer to probably not be the one to do this because I don't think I'm the best conversation partner. I'd love to have someone else do this, but I see there's a gaping hole that no one's picked up. And this live stream has proven that people have said, yeah, it's something that they think would be valuable. So it's kind of one of those things is like, I need to try and figure out what that would look like. But if you'd want to have it on the Broken Clock Tower server, Grim, I'd be happy to do that too.
What's this? Sorry, I missed like the first hour of this, I think. But is it just come back to Discord? Is that a proposal, or is there a?
No, I just what I wanted to talk about is I've had this sense, Tayo, that I love what's going on here in YouTube. You've heard me make this claim before, and the reason why I hit you up because you thought you'd be interested in it is I think there's also a hole where people come to this corner and want to have the conversations that they're seeing on their YouTube, but maybe don't want to join on YouTube or whatever to find that. And I say private, meaning not broadcast publicly on YouTube, a space where they could, potentially have estuary protocol type conversations, or where it would be just chattings, but it's in, I don't care if it's Discord or some other medium, but a place where people could go and have those conversations if they're not the sort of people that want to have those conversations on YouTube, which is broadcast to the world, right? I also think that to some extent, when you know you're broadcasting to the world, it changes things a bit versus when you're in a Discord. Like, I think there's also another dynamic that comes out there. So again, the reason why I reached out to you earlier when I was thinking about this is I really wanted to get the hive mind, because if everyone had said like, no, 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 I don't have any interest in that, I'd be like, oh, maybe that there's not a need. Actually, if you look at the comments before, there were a lot of people who were saying, yeah, I'd be more interested in that sort of space. Yeah, that'd be something that I would maybe want to do. So, and I think you heard me talk about this before, and you were like, hey, I'd like to be involved in something like
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think that it's needed, because not everyone wants to. No, should everyone. I'm already scared that many people are so comfortable using this YouTube medium, but let's say we're doing a new thing with it. Nevertheless, I think the reason I'm actually quite interested is because of people's stories. I think stories are the ways in which we can connect quicker. Like we can find a model in which a model somewhere in someone's story that connects with our model, and then we can build bridges and start conversations quicker with that. And some people are not, rightfully so, comfortable broadcasting parts of their stories just to the web. And I think a space like what you're proposing, Lance, would be a good place where, if in a more, I mean, it's still on the internet, but it's not being broadcasted, which I think makes a difference. And
yeah.
I mean, Ron and I had a great conversation last week. This was started from the Hive Mind. He messaged me, he said we should have a conversation. I dropped my email and we arranged a time. We had a great conversation. But at the start of the conversation, we both decided that we're just not going to record this. There's no, because we both understand that recording means there's the idea that it's going to be broadcasted to an audience, and that has an effect on the spirit of the conversation. So yeah, I think those spaces are needed, but I don't know if Discord is the best place for it. That's a conversation I'm open to. But if Discord's the best we've got, then yeah, I'll jump on Discord and I'll engage with people in conversations.
Well, Zach Parsons' project came on earlier and mentioned there's this Mighty Networks or whatever. So yeah, for me, like the tool doesn't matter to me. It's the spirit of providing a space for conversation, right? That's not broadcast to the world, so to speak. So at any rate, and then Tunji and I were, he was just, we were moving over a little bit into the conversation where he was watching some of the videos this morning and saw Jordan Peterson where someone was Christianizing all over him, and Jordan is like, what do you mean by that? You know, and by the way, I think that's kind of relevant here. We talk about that here is because we can have our own TLCs, right, where we start dropping all these jargony things that could be difficult. And like I said, again, sometimes I think that's valuable, so you don't have to always give the long answer to move a conversation forward, because it's something that to be there at the same time. I think some people also do a better job of maybe even talking about those things where we have our jargon about, but they maybe don't use the jargon and have figured out maybe more, like say, layman's terms or whatever. So.
Yeah, that's also why a live chat or talking is much more effective than writing comment or chatting. Yeah, every time that I'm on the Discord, I see that there is an extra gap in the communication. People assume that I know what they are referring to, and but I don't know what they are talking about most of the time. I don't know their reference. I don't know their background. I'm just reading that message there, so I have to follow through with questions to get to what's their actual point. Speaking in person is facilitate that process so much better. So it's irreplaceable.
Yeah, so here's the interesting. So, Afriel, I'd say this isn't about colonization. It's not talking about centralizing anything. It's about providing a space for people to have conversation. I even said that you would want to have. I think my idea is this would work out great is if people from all the channels would then come participate because people want to maybe want to participate with the different folks that they have. No one's going to make money off of this. This is not an attempt to control or do anything. All I'm throwing out there now, again, which I love, which people are highly suspicious.
Are you telling me I'm not getting paid for today? What?
Yeah, and people are highly suspicious about, oh, this person wants to do this thing or whatever. Like, I have zero financial interest in this space. I have zero status clout pursuit of this. It comes from a pure place of trying to provide a space for people other than YouTube to have the conversations, because I believe people come here primarily and they want to start having that conversation. I've just seen it over and over. I would just say the one thing I'd say about the Discord, and I'd go pop around, people I've been on Broken Clock Tower and no one really gets into voice chats. The BOM chats, you have to have people that are there, to stay quite a bit and so on and so forth. Like, so the BOM voice chat stuff has kind of fallen off. I love Grail Country has a Discord server, love it. Sometimes people jump in there, but that's not being used as a conversational place. So, I mean, if those channels, if people were having those conversations in those channels and people could find their way there and there was some vibrant conversations going on, then I wouldn't have spotted the fact that there's this lack, but there is a lack. Like, I hang around these places in these spaces. And I would quite frankly prefer, like Paul talked about, like, I got enough on my plate. Like, got a pretty important job that I've got a pretty difficult job right now. I'm trying to bring a bunch of transformation in a large organization. So I've got a lot of work I need to be doing. Obviously got family stuff. I got to work on my own recovery. I have my own obligations into my church commitments. So I have a lot going on,
Yeah, I think just on Discord, I agree with what Sherry, Nathaniel are saying about just a voice and a mostly voice chat Discord with not a lot of text and not too many channels. That just streamlines what's going on, because I still get confused by Discord, and all I do is just jump into voice chat, and yeah, but I also don't understand. I think that there might be like times where it's more busier than usual, which are probably like too late for me to be on Discord at those times. So I often think maybe it's just like a timing thing for me. But it sounds like from what you're saying that Discord is just not as popular as it used to be. What are you proposing, Lance? Are you proposing having people that are willing to just sit in Discord rooms waiting for people and just to hold that space?
Yeah, so I think that would take a very unique individual. For example, I just told you how busy I am. I can't do that. Like, one of the amazing things Joey did is he was single or whatever. He made a real commitment to really being around. What I was able to do in my old job is I was able just to hang out in the open studio where I was working, and sometimes, and just if you show up, people will start popping in. And if they know you're there, they'll come, try and find it. So all I would probably be able to do right now is, I think there are a couple people, you mentioned something, I think Chad, there are a few people who said, hey, I'd be willing to commit to, hey, on these two couple days of the week, I'll be in there between these time frames. You know what I mean? So if you're a person if you see these sorts of conversations and you want to have this sort of conversation, we'll be there to do that. I also think that would maybe make some sense for me with one of the spaces that I would do is I probably would run one of those with using the estuary protocol if people wanted to participate in something like that, right? So it'd be like, hey, I'm going to do estuary protocol at whatever time on Fridays.
I think that would be a more efficient way of relaunching people participating on Discord, is to say we're doing this this thing or the estuary and it's taking place on Discord. And I think that might get people familiar with just using the interface and whatnot.
Yeah. And what I would like to do is because I do think what I do understand is that particularly working, did a lot of leadership consulting with organizations, you have to fight for culture, right? And so when you hear words like moderation and those sorts of things, really what I would probably be doing with this is hopefully maybe model it in some ways. And what I would love to have happen is if it really is something people want to do, then other people would be doing it too, and they could just use that whatever the space is. I don't care if it's Discord or whatever, something simple. So let's say you created one where like, hey, on Tuesdays I'm here at this time, and Thursdays I'm here at this time, and it can become whatever good faith conversation thing you want it to be, whether it's a free form just chatting. Maybe it's about a topic of a certain video. You know what I mean? Hey, there's this thing that's been going around, and people are talking about X. We're going to talk about this here. It could also be that you're going to always do estuary during that time frame. I would hope there would potentially be, because I'm not the person that people are coming to this little corner of the internet to talk to. They're coming here to talk to people like Luke, right? They want to, like yourself, Kyle, like other people. So, what I would love to have happen is if I think this is needed, is that I'd be willing to carve out some time in my schedule to say, okay, we'll have the space open here and be consistent about it, because that's as long as you're consistent at a certain time, people will know, oh, this maybe something's going on over here. And this won't work with just me because I don't have enough time.
Okay,
I hope there'd be other people that would then start doing that too. And then from the YouTube channels, we could point people to like, hey, if you want to have conversations like this, go check out this place, and there's different conversations that are going on at different
times. Sorry, I got into comments and got distracted for a second. But yeah, I do think modeling. Sorry, I think I missed a lot of like the crux of what you said. You're saying we need to you want the people that people are looking to talk to, so the Lukes, the Chads, the Grizz, the faces of the corner, so to speak, to model what was it, estuary that they were modeling? You're muted.
A good faith conversation, like literally just moderate a good faith just chatting could be one. I mean, again, like it's organic, right? Like some people will want to some people may want to bring something they're ruminate. Like, so what was one of the beautiful things about the voice chat? Sometimes when someone come in and say, hey, I've been thinking about this thing. You know what I mean? This thing's been on my mind. I'm trying to make sense of XYZ. And then they might say, hey, Tayo, I saw you on this live stream and you said XYZ, and it made me think about, just, what I'm talking about, just the natural organic conversations. I think,
yeah,
but then I also think, and not either or, and I also think that probably doing some estuary protocol stuff would make some sense too, right?
I think the problem with the estuary protocol is it's difficult to. You need to have a certain amount of people in mind, and once that gets rolling, it's difficult to get new people to join in and get them up to date, because they could just jump into the conversation that was decided upon, but then they're not part of the protocol. They weren't involved in the decision making process, so it might be difficult for them to fully track all of the suggestions that led to the spirit of what's being discussed. But I do agree with you that as a way of modeling, especially listening and encouraging, making sure everyone's voice at least feels heard a little bit, the estuary protocol is. Think so. It sounds like to me, Lance, what you're saying is something that what you're saying is something that Chad has been modeling. Is he's been hosting great conversations. Sometimes he's involved in it. Sometimes he's just facilitating and just listening to someone share their story. And also he's modeled and he's got a virtual estuary going that gets recorded and then broadcasted later. And I think
Yeah, yeah.
if Grail Country, for example, Nate, you, yourself, Sherry, Luke, just started not even just chatting Estuary, just recording Estuary, and then premiere it, and then after, at the conclusion of the premiere, lead people to a Discord to carry on the conversation. That might be a way to funnel those people into it.
Yep.
PBK.
No, I think that it is modeling, right? People just need to see it. And so I love what Chad's doing, trying to just show people what this is. Emily had mentioned she'd love to do that. Jean Van Donk has some places where people are doing estuary. Where is oh, here we go. TLS net. So John Van Donk, there are people that are like, if you're interested in doing that, there are people that are, Nate Hiles, another great person to connect with on this, around estuary and protocol. So I do think like modeling it so people can see what it looks like is important. And when we talk about the protocol, I just put this up there. This comes from John. Go ahead.
The link to the stream. PVK and Sherry want to.
I hadn't done that in a while. I apologize, people. So when we talk about protocol, what does that look like? And this comes out of that the ELS net group, but it's, Paul's been a part of this and everything else. Is you just go around, and it's a way to kind of moderate the conversation. You ask people to introduce themselves, what brought them here. You then invite each individual to share, and you kind of prime the pump of something that they've been thinking about, and they talk about the sorts of things and give you some cues to some things you might be able to think about. And then people go around the room and they share, they choose whatever that they want to share, and then the group gets to decide what topic they might want to have a conversation about. So what's beautiful about the protocol, it helps guide the conversation in a meaningful way, because you can get people to get in their cars, and particularly if you're doing it live, and drive to a place in a space, you want to have a fruitful conversation. So I figured we use this word that might have been a TLCE. So, I just threw this up there. And so again, in terms of like this sort of a space, I think the online conversation space could be freeform, like what you see here. I think providing some times where people could be participating in estuary protocol, again, all that's modeling or whatever, like you could have people having conversations like that. And again, very organic. Like I want to repeat this again. My heart is to provide a place that's not publicly broadcast on YouTube, where people find their way into this place if they want to have conversation, that they can have conversation.
All right. Before Paul speaks, I do want to be a little cheeky and say that probably the biggest thing that could make that happen is if PVK started doing the Discord Q&A again, because those usually result in people staying after the Q&A to keep the conversation going. Up now, Paul. Well, what do you have to say to that?
No, that's true. And part of what so there was going to be an iteration of Bridges of Meaning 2.0. And it was very much like Sherry talked about. It was not only going to be text suppressed, but it was also going to be regionalized, where people would not talk globally, but talk regionally. And the whole studio, open studio, that was my idea, because I realized that a lot of people who are listening to this right now, just like I'm doing, I'm getting my breakfast ready. I've got to take the dog out, give the dog a little bit of exercise, and then I've got to go to church. And so, I've usually got a little bit of time I can talk in here. So a lot of people use YouTube for, catch as catch can listening in the car here and there. And so TLC has a lot of that. And I think part of what we've been doing is looking for better tools. And and so I think eventually it's going to be a multi-layered thing as things grow, as there are now. And I think Jacob's just chatting was sort of a breakthrough, and I think Luke's morning live stream has been a breakthrough. At every layer there's something, at every transition there's something gained and something lost, and we're wrestling with that now. And I think you're right, Lance, that we need more private spaces. I've also been thinking about how YouTube memberships on channels, now that we have a couple of channels that are monetized, some of those spaces can be. And again, part of my difficulty is the whole status thing, because I draw too much attention. And then there's always, there's always scale. So with a live estuary, 8 or 10, we sort of break up into smaller groups. Part of the big advantage of just chatting on YouTube is that a much smaller group of people have Discord open all the time, and YouTube makes discovery easy. So that's part of the reason that these live streams have worked. So I think these are exactly the right questions, and I think we need to keep experimenting, because it's usually in experimenting that we discover things. And I think the last 6 months have been a real growth phase, because we've had new breakouts, new experiments, and new channels. And but yeah, and the reason, part of the reason I did question and answer on Bridges of Meaning was, Rick wasn't working. And that's just part of it, though, too. I also was frustrated. Discord was just so cumbersome with that. And basically the hive mind was on a different channel. And then we had to have 2 different channels, because one allowed memes and the other didn't. And so, it's always a shame when you do a transition, because something's lost. But and I'm thinking the same thing in terms of conferences, how to do something different. But we're bumping into these dynamics of celebrity, where the truth is, if you don't get Peugeot, Vervaeke, Peterson, Martin Shaw, if you don't get big names, you won't draw people. And if you don't draw people, you can't. So, I could do a conference, and maybe, I'm doing estuary every Sunday, and people aren't flying in for it. Every now and then someone will fly in, but they flew in here for another reason. And that's great, because the numbers stay small, and I want to keep the numbers small as long as I can. So no, we've been working on this. Well, that's exactly right, Sherry, because we want to both connect worldwide, and we want to connect. And Sherry's in a very isolated place, so regional. So it's super hard to figure this stuff out, because scale is both necessary and a challenge. So I'll stop and listen more.
Well, one of the things is, you've been talking about how you want to do the meeting spaces. I had a deck together. We were going to do a gathering in Kansas City. It actually, and then I ended up moving down to Houston, and then all of a sudden the Symbolic World Summit just basically came right over the top. It would have been like so close. How are we going to compete with the Symbolic World Summit? And Richard Rowland was going to be a part of that group, but I'll show you the pitch deck, PBK. What I realized was the perfect place is there was this retreat center that was only 20 minutes away from the Kansas City International Airport. And what it would have done is it's out in the country. Everyone would have stayed in the exact same place. And there were fire pits that were available. So there were fire pits that were available. It was a Christian retreat center, right? But I've been to retreats there, and what I realized with people hunger is community. And so we were going to have a light speaker. We would have had speakers, and it was going to be around story and stuff. But it would have been light on the conference presentation, and would have allowed a lot of time for community. and conversation. And we were going to have an estuary there, and then we were going to have a YouTube place where people could broadcast live or whatever. But the point was, how do we bring people together where they're all staying and sleeping? They can stay up and have a super late conversation. All the meals were going to be in the same place, so everyone's going to eat with one another. So, the vision that I saw was really more of a community retreat where people can come together in community and conversation. And we would have had estuary, and we would have, done those sorts of things. But, for me, we just need to pull that off in Kansas City, Paul, and not have the symbolic world schedule itself right on top of us, Summit. But to me, I think those are the sorts of things that, because I think one of the things that I've heard for people when they, for even like Chino or one of these other things, as good as they were, the people who were at the campsite had a very different experience than people who were staying in hotels and stuff around there. Like, you've got to provide a place where people are coming together in one spot, eat meals together, like it's the 24/7 or the 24-hour a day like experience. I think so. When you were talking about that, Paul, I'll send you my pitch deck in an email. You look at, like, I can cast vision, and I was super excited about it. And we also knew that we weren't going to we intentionally were trying to not have stars. We were trying to go a level down, like a Richard Rowland and a Justin and a Jess and Sherry. No offense to any of y'all they're not PVK or Pajo or Vervaeke, because I think that's where it's going to scale, Paul, right? That's when things are going to take hold, when you don't have to rely upon the star. Because the fact of the matter is, there are lots of grim, there's lots of people. When we come together, there's a larger reason for us to come together than, no offense, Paul, than just you.
Well, and that's similar to a lot of my thinking about a conference I might do at Living Stones. Very quickly, when you start mapping out the cost structure, I mean, that's really where you have to sort of figure it out. Because if, for example, you need, at Living Stones, I can get the place for almost nothing. And so I was thinking similar things at Pilgrimage to Sherry's Farm event. And you can do those with smaller events, and those are good. So, and again, I think it's going to be multi-tiered. I think we're going to have big events, pricey events with platformers, and then we're going to have smaller events without. And I think that's basically how you construct the pyramid, really.
Well, let me throw this at you. So our event was going to cost around $400 a person, but but it was going to include all your meals, all your lodging, right? And provide that space. Because when I added that up in my head, I'm not someone with kids who just went through college, everything else. I'm not someone sitting on a bunch of cash. I haven't gone to certain events just because of time, but more importantly, the cost, right? So even in my head, when I start adding up, well, if I get if it's 15 minutes from the airport and you can Uber to there, or we could have shuttles, and then all you have to do is get there and then everything's taken care of, that number doesn't seem unwieldy to me.
And my guess is you'd get 25 to 30 people.
Yeah.
That would be, because, part of what we're learning as we're doing smaller events and bigger events like the Arkansas event was, I've never heard how many people were there.
It was under 100 for sure.
Yeah. And the DC event was about 35, 40. And so a lot of it is figuring out that metric. And then you're exactly right, too, with calendar. People look at the numbers. This is what John Van Donk had wrong, too. People look at the numbers of like subscribers on a channel. That tells you nothing. If you want to know who the hardcore is and what size that is, look at the numbers of a Grim Grizz live stream. Look at the numbers of Friday Morning Nameless. We're talking a few hundred people, but then it goes out from there. That's part of the difficulty of figuring out what's going on, is that scale is really hard to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun to listen to you Americans talk about conferences. and all of the celebrity guests you can get. But we do have the Germans who are consistent in providing the European conference every year. So,
well, I'm not going to be able to make it because I've got a lot of weddings this summer. I've got 2 sons who are getting married this summer, so that obviously takes priority. But the Europeans are planning something next, and I think it'll be very much along the lines of what you're talking about. The difficulty that, if you talk to the breakwater folks, I mean, they are really running into this scale finance cost issue. And Symbolic World, the pricing for Chino was, the conference cost was, 150, 200. Symbolic World was 400.
But you got to add in people's hotels and everything else, though,
and their travel and all that stuff. No, that's right. It's a very expensive proposition, and that right there limits it, and it also shapes who's at the conference. And I haven't done an event in Australia since 2019.
No time like the present.
Well, I'll take this. So we're on Grail Country now. Nate, so people can start thinking about it. Maybe if someone has the date, they can put it out here. Grail is
I've got September. I've got September. I think it's sometime in September because that's what I've got written down. Because
I need to figure that out too, because that's the one I definitely need to try and think about and see if I can make some time to make. But he's planning to do an estuary type event up in Olympia, Washington area.
I just want to give a shout out to John Van Dunk because this is why he said estuary scales better than anything else that we've got going on. It clicks the in-person box and also the localized box because you need multiple estuaries in multiple cities, and that can grow quicker. So yeah, Van Dunk's a low-key genius.
He's a high-key genius.
Clara asked this question: have you all looked for outside funding?
No, that's how they get you. No thanks.
So here's my thing with where I'll just say my 2 cents on that is I'm very leery of outside funding. One of the wisdom steps of 12-step groups, particularly AA, is they realized money and outside funding was going to be a problem. So they said we're fully self-supporting through our own contributions. And what that means is the little money people put that are part of the group into the plate, that's what pays for the rent and stuff like that. So even if, let's just say, a wealthy family wants to give a gob of money to Alcoholics Anonymous because it saved their child or whatever in their will, Alcoholics Anonymous won't take it. They recognize the problem with strings being attached and everything else. So funding becomes it's a complex thing. I don't know how, but that's just me saying something. Paul might have a very different viewpoint on it, but I'm leery of outside funding.
I could probably get $1 million or so for something. But Tunji, you made the comment, and it was so funny. It came on the Freddie and Paul show too from Ryan. He's like, "We're not getting paid for this." One, and you can't keep money out of it. There's always got to be a financial aspect, but you really want to think very much about how that plays in, because it's super powerful. And so when I'm dreaming about a conference here, I'm thinking Chad's got to be here, Grizz has got to be here. And so then, and when we did Chino, I told Van Dunk, I said, you have to get Grizz here. And now I don't care how much it costs. You got to get Grizz here. and that's funny because people look at that and say, what, he's got less than 2,000 subs on his channel. Oh, but for this little group, he's a pretty important person. And Chad is that way too. But already now you've got a hierarchy. And so, yeah. Grizz, I'm outside, so we got wind blowing. So the money thing is a really difficult thing, but I'm with you, Lance, on super cautious about outside funds.
Yeah, I just want to see how someone that was at Chino, the campsite was by far the best part of being at Chino. It was going back to the campsite and the bonds that developed around the fire. So, yeah, that was Grizz needed to be there. And also Pinball for Jesus. What a way to like break in the conference.
I thought you said pinball for Jesus for a second.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Not to undermine paintball, but there are other ways of breaking the ice too.
No, it's
I know. I'm not convinced we have to train all of our people for urban combat.
But it's fun to do.
This is the perfect example. God bless you, Up. You are a massive supporter of lots of folks across here. But this is the perfect example of how AA does it. It's the people that are part of the community that provide the funds with no strings attached, you know.
Oh, the chat.
And I think doing the hard work of, we've grown very slow, and that's been intentional for my part. And there are some people around with funds that have told me, Paul, I trust you. When you say when and you want to do a bigger project, call me. And then they get tired of waiting for years because I don't call. And then they'll come back and say, did you hear me? I said, yes, I heard you. But here's the thing about all of these little conferences, we always learn something. We always learn something. And I tell people, I say, we look back at history and we see Jesus, James, John. You know what? Nobody in the Roman Empire, hardly anybody. You look at who was writing about Rome and history and stuff. You're hard pressed to find anything about Jesus. One or two very early references, but hard pressed to find anything about Jesus for like about 200 years. And after that, whoosh. So, I'm not planning on ever seeing the fruits of what I'm doing, at least not with my eyes where they are right now. The great cloud of witnesses, maybe I'll be at that stage. But that's why I think having lots of different people plan conferences, having them all sweat the details is where you actually build. It's how you actually build something. It's exactly how the church was built.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting back a little bit to the private chat conversation. I think Andre probably knows better than anyone what you're still on Discord. You're still engaging in Discord conversation. What difference do you see between that and just chatting conversations?
Just chatting usually has a theme to it. Like it has a flow and a theme, and it doesn't go like to and fro as much. Like just chatting will be like about a topic usually, or a couple of topics. Discord conversations can go anywhere, and also they're like pliable to trolls. You won't find it just chatting where like a troll really will jump on the stream and ruin everything. And if they do, it's like maybe for like half a minute at the most. Like a Discord, anyone can come in. I think there's probably like more openness to Discord. You have a bigger range of people. A lot of people don't want to go on just chatting streams unless they're part of like this little corner or BOM, quite specifically. They sort of like want to keep to like one niche. Discord, you get like a lot of travelers. People like you'll only see like once or twice, if ever again.
Yeah, I think that's part of what Lance is saying. It's making it a place where those conversations can happen more regularly. I was going to suggest just putting the Discord link in all of the Just Chatting streams, so people can know where to go for this type of conversations, but private. But I think, like you said, that would open up Discord for a lot of trolls, and then you need mods and things get.
Yeah. Which Discord link for BOM? Or like which Discord are you talking about?
For
I was thinking.
BOM,
I think one of the good things. I think I wouldn't have an issue with that. I think probably what I think is a wisdom step would be is having a Discord server with meeting rooms and voice chats. Maybe just having a welcoming without where people aren't going to get into a bunch of text fights about stuff or whatever. Just kind of a welcome sort of channel and so on and so forth. And then people could put them like if people could just put those links in their YouTube channels and
Yeah.
it could say. And the other thing I think about, like we're talking here live, like for example, let's just say, hey, tonight at 8 o'clock, go check the link below. We'll be having a Just Chatting down there. If anybody is lurking or wants to come in, we'll be talking about X or whatever, or we're having an estuary protocol. I think
Also-
Yeah. Well, the easiest thing to do, rather than like tack onto an existing Discord, is just to make like a new one and like put that on there, and then we'll set like Teo and I can be moderators. Like I've got lots of moderating experience.
No, I have no
If
experience. I
Teo
think-
doesn't want to do it, like he doesn't have to. Like just because I trust him, that's why I put his name up. But like I can easily handle everybody, and then set up sections, have like the welcome section, and just so if the trolls come in, they get kicked out. But it's not sort of like introducing them to an already formed community where other people have to do the work. I think that work.
I am more than willing to volunteer. Just my working hours I can just spend on Discord because I can the open studio method works very well for me. But yeah. I think the first step, like you said, Lance, is getting this Discord started. I think was in a Nathan.
Yeah, and I think it's start off simple and just see if there's whatever the interest is. And the other thing I've always thought about that would make some sense is you could start off a chat here on YouTube and say, okay, if anybody's interested, we're going to be popping down over here and continue this conversation. That could also be an interesting way to lead into those things. But I think it's very organic. Here's what I think: if there's a real need that people want to have these conversations and they don't want to do it without broadcasting it to the world like you do on YouTube, then people will show up, right? And it's all about providing some spaces and some places. And I don't necessarily think at the time that it's a 24/7, 365 thing. I think you probably just have some times where you would potentially have some people that would, be there. Now, I think if it started to get some traction and there were multiple people having multiple Just Chattings or estuaries over the week, once people know to go there, probably people would start to naturally congregate in voice chats on times when there weren't scheduled things, So, the tough thing does become moderation, right? So I get that. And, some of those things. So I'm thinking really small, really organic, providing a couple spaces and places. Maybe Chad's already thrown his name out there. You've thrown your name out to Kyle, Andre, whatever. And people said, hey, I'd be willing to be, if you want to let people know I'm going to be here on this time for a couple hours just to chat, I'm cool to do that. Like, I think I'm thinking very organic, whatever. And here's the thing, and I just want to say this. I do not want to own this. I don't want to brand this. I'm not looking to make any money in this. It's purely about providing a space. It's purely about providing space for people existing here that want to also have those conversations. But really, I'm thinking about the new people.
Yeah.
And we've had this new wave of new YouTubers and stuff. It's like also the people haven't even made their way here yet. Like that's my focus is on where do the new people go if they want to have these types of conversations.
Yeah, I would really just thinking out loud, love to host an estuary with a lot of the new content creators, similarly to what Chad did. And if that can lead to more Discord conversation, that would be cool.
Mhm. Well, I love this. Jad seems like once a month he's going to start
I'm scheduled for
modeling estuary. It's going to be I think it's again lots of and to do. I still think when Jacob started the just chatting thing, like Jacob has had a couple of really genius moments where he's thought about and done certain things, which I think are awesome. So I've got probably about another 5 minutes before I got to shut it down. PVK has a live stream going on. Is any final words from y'all?
Yeah, I just want to say I do sometimes just chill in the BOM Discord. Andrew and I have talked a bunch on that. So if people do want to check it out, just jump in the voice chat. I'll be there sometimes.
Yeah, I can jump in there after this.
Yeah, right after
If
this.
anyone wants to pop in.
Perfect. That's exactly. See the lead in. It's the
Do we
show.
even have a Discord link to share out to people that want to jump in?
I will.
Let's see if there's an invite. BOM does. Oh yeah, no invites are disabled for BOM. I think there's usually one on like Paul's videos though. I think. Let me have a look.
Let me see here. I don't know. I've tried to. Oh, I shared a link in here.
If you can, you put that in the description of the video. It might be easier to link that.
Okay.
Haha, ASL. Oh my gosh.
I probably can't because I don't have access to the YouTube. I can stream here, but I don't have access. So, Bridges of Meaning Discord. Some folks are going to go over there and continue a conversation. So, yeah, it's kind of a selfish conversation today. It's something I've been thinking about, and I wanted to take this out to the hive mind and get feedback and comments. Twinji, I love the fact that you're participating here now. I keep coming back. Tayo and Andre always have spent hours with you, Andre, in voice chats, and I was able to meet you because my old job, I had the ability to just kind of hang around in the open studio, and I was there a lot and provided the space, and I met Tayo and by hanging out in there.
Yeah, it was good to talk with you guys, and I look forward for the next time.
Tunji, are you on Discord?
Just thinking that. Say again.
Are you on Discord?
Yeah, what to do?
Yeah, I am on Discord.
Okay.
Give me a second. Where's the profile
the
thing
Bridges
now?
of Meaning and on the Broken Clock Tower one.
Oh, that's not.
Yep. I'm gonna go. It was good to talk with you guys.
What I'll do is I'll just add my username on Discord. People can add me if they want to find Bridges of Meaning, and I'll get them in there.
All right. The PVK live stream. I'm sure I'll see a bunch of you in the hive mind. I'm sure maybe Grim's doing something today too. So see you again, and also thanks to Nate for letting us use Squirrel Country. Have a good afternoon.
All right, there we go. It's in the live chat now. I'm sorry I got on so late, but
that's all right. Don't apologize. I just Stephanie asked just why would you say it's selfish? Because it was something I was thinking about, and decide whether I was wanted to do something or not. So, at any rate, all right, y'all.
See you later.